Well, we're back with The Gloves Are Off, and guys, we're just kind of getting into this topic. Would you believe or say in December that the Oilers would still be around the playoff spot, albeit in a weak Pacific Division? But that is the case as they won their sixth straight game. I can't even talk. But nevertheless, it's been a certain exciting time for them, as well as the other team, their neighbors down on Highway 2, the Calgary Flames. Another team that's gone on a recent streak that has elevated them into at least about a point out of a playoff spot. But you look at where the Flames have been, especially after their start this year, and you look at where the Oilers have done up to this point, are we starting to see the fortunes turn around for these two clubs in Alberta?
I think their fortunes are getting better. I mean, they really, especially Edmonton, had nowhere to go but better. I think it's more of a case that the other teams have come back to them more than they've taken that giant leap forward. I think Calgary, like you said, you mentioned the start, that was a disappointment for them, especially coming off what they did last year. I think they're getting back to what their team really is, which is a playoff hockey team. I think most people anticipated Edmonton, if they played well, would be on the bubble, and you know what, if they can carry in a fight for 7th or 8th up until February, I think everyone will be very pleasantly surprised.
A week ago, we're reading about how the Oilers could possibly get Austin Matthews and how the NHL has to change everything because the Oilers, now we're talking about them in the playoffs.
They've won 6 in a row, and you look at that core, they're starting to play to that potential.
But I think it's more of this tide is kind of shifting. It's actually shifted now to the Eastern. That's where all the great teams are in the Eastern Conference. This is kind of the Pacific's a horrible division. Let's not even kid ourselves. Like 3 points and you're at the bottom. Like that's how close it is. So I don't really know if it's all of Edmonton's playing great. They're finally maybe playing up to the potential they've had for 4 or 5 years now, or just everyone else is finally, LA's great obviously, but Vancouver, San Jose have their issues. If you go through that whole division, every team has some kind of issue. So I don't really know if it's them playing the potential or same with Calgary. It's more just the division's kind of evened itself out.
The Pittsburgh Penguins, speaking of the East, a team that's struggling of late, had to fire their head coach, Mike Johnston, in replacing him as Mike Sullivan, but it seems to not really help the team as much. What seems to be the issue? Was Mike Johnston truly the guy to blame for their bad start so far to the year? And Andrew, we'll start with you.
He's one of a three-headed monster, as we talked about. It's between his system of playing with an offensive-minded team, you can't play defensive-minded system, especially also when you don't have a defense, which is the second thing, and then their general manager is not a guy in there who can rebuild a team. There's so many problems. You had to get rid of him, the coach. You can't play that kind of system with a guy like Crosby and Malkin and Kessel on your team. You're a scoring team, you're an offensive team, and you're trying to play more of a defensive structured game. That goes against everything that your team is built to play with. So I don't know. I don't understand how Pittsburgh didn't get rid of him sooner.
To follow that up really quickly, though, with you, Andrew, who in that order, in the top 3, from 3 to 1, would be to blame then? Would you put Johnston at number 2 then?
I would, because that's what you do, the day-to-day system. And the Penguins, you can win and die just based on what Crosby and Malcolm do. We all know that. We've watched them and then they get the playoffs and they burn out. But you can do very well with the 2 best players in the world, scoring all your goals and doing everything for you. So I put a lot of blame on putting a system in that doesn't work for the players that you have, and you've got to start there before you even think about rebuilding a defensive core or changing a general manager.
I think that's part of it, the system he was playing. I mean, it's a casualty of the East. We talked about how strong the East was. Well, they have to adjust their style of play, because I think what people are forgetting in this is you don't see the same jump from Crosby and Malkin anymore. They're not the 2 best players in the world. They're not even close. They might still be borderline top 10, but they have not played like the top 2 or top 5 players in the world. So this team needs to start adjusting how they're going to play as these guys get older. And I think Johnson just tried to do that maybe a little bit too quick, a little bit too much too soon. If he would have eased it in, he might still be there. But to do it just snap, I think was devastating to what they're trying to do.
Didn't have a bad first year, but obviously we know it doesn't matter what you do. It's what you've done lately. And, of course, with the Penguins' struggles, didn't help his cause. Marc-Andre Fleury, that is out with a concussion too. So that just adds to the problems
We're going to
for
win
the
the
Penguins.
cup. We got a coaching change middle of the year. We already won the cup. Don't worry about it. I'm okay.
All right, let's move on to a team. Not necessarily winning a cup, but they're darn good, and they might have a chance. I would call them Super Bowl favorites at this point, because if you look at how well they played, the 13-0 Carolina Panthers not only win but seem to steamroll. Albeit it's the Atlanta Falcons, but if you look at what they've done in their body of work and their games they have coming up, there's no reason for this team to go 16-0. Like, are we seeing the front runners right now for the Vince Lombardi Trophy?
No. I think a regular season is one thing. You've got a team that doesn't have a lot of playoff experience. I think when push comes to shove, they end up somewhere cold. I think they may be in trouble. And you know what? It's the NFL. You're one injury away from your team being terrible. I mean, something happens to Newton on one end of the ball or Kuechly on the other, and they could lose the next 4 easily. But I just think experience-wise, I think come the playoffs, they're going to be in tough to make it through.
See, I think actually the opposite. I think they are the favorites because they're going to probably more than likely play everything at home, and they're not playing like, look at the other division. It's a mess when you have New England, Denver. You have so many good teams.
Denver doesn't have a quarterback at this point, or they still have more controversy. Osweiler looked terrible against, well, yeah, it didn't look that great even his games before, but the game against Oakland, that defense destroyed him.
So there's a lot of, I think, and that side is going to take care of each other, and it's going to be beat up football. And you get to the Super Bowl, Carolina, I'm not going to say they're going to walk in, but the way they've been playing, I think they can, in a sense, walk in. And it's interesting to think that this is a team at the beginning of the year everyone wrote off that this would be like your middle of the pack team because they had no wide receiver core. They had their defense was kind of suspect, and we didn't know what Cam Newton could actually do. Now he's coming out and he's the best, arguably to say the best quarterback in the league. I was on his bandwagon from the beginning. I drafted him in both my leagues, so I was happy. So
I just can't jump on any team where Ted Ginn Jr. is your best receiver.
All right, well, he made some great catches last week. If he could continue that might be something. Okay, very quickly, guys, I want your opinion. 13-0, they have 3 teams that are 6-7, or 1 6-8 team that they're facing for the next 3 weeks. They could go perfect. Will they go perfect?
I don't think they will. The reason I say that is watching them over the last couple of weeks and seeing how gigantic their heads are getting. I mean, the amount of posing for pictures and the selfies, I think they're due for a bit of a surprising train wreck that might be very good for them and knock them back to reality.
they probably will. I don't care. I got eliminated from playoffs, so.
All right, guys.
Playoffs already.
There we go.
I got eliminated, so
Thanks
I don't
a lot,
care
guys.
anymore.
Appreciate that talk. All right, for sure. We'll come back with more gloves. We got over under next.